Okay, I think we're back live, right?
We're on.
How you feeling?
Yeah,
Good.
I'm glad you guys came.
Thank you for having us.
I think this is going to be fun.
It's a great
I don't know if
idea.
I give you any insight, but it's going to be fun.
All right, we'll go through it. We're going to spend about 10 minutes with Betsy, really going from her earliest childhood, maybe up into the high school years, and then we'll take a break and go on to a second tape. So, anything to add before we start? We're
No,
good?
I'm set. I'm set.
All right, so, and if we could be specific, if you remember names or key dates, that would be helpful, but tell us about yourself.
Okay. Well, I was born September 21st, 1938, and happened to be the greatest hurricane of all 100 years. It hit the East Coast, and it came up, and it devastated all the shoreline. 6,000 people died that day, which is kind of amazing that you were born on a day with 6,000 people died.
You were born in New Haven, right?
In New Haven, and my father was waiting in the hospital to hear this wonderful news of me when the plate glass window blew in, and they came in and said, "You have a little daughter." And I thought that was kind of an interesting thing.
Right.
You know?
Could you just tell us your dad's name and your mom's name?
Sure. My mom was Anne Belinda Riley Hennessy, and my father was William Francis
Okay.
Hennessy.
And you're an only child,
I'm
right?
an only child, and my mother had 4 brothers and a sister, and of course they're all gone now. My mother would be 116 years old if she were living today, which is pretty remarkable. She had me when she was 40 because she met my father when she was 39,
Okay.
and they got married, and my father's feet never hit the ground after he met her, and that's kind of true, and her also. She had my mother had an interesting job. She was a secretary for the president of Travelers Insurance
Okay.
in Hartford, and she commuted every day from Wallingford to Hartford, which was pretty remarkable. And my father was an iron worker, and he lived in New Haven, and he was, actually, you are pretty much a spitting image of him. The thick hair, the blue eyes, the big grin,
Right.
and he was quite a wonderful sense of humor. But anyway, I was born in New Haven, and then we moved to Willow Street, 319 Willow Street, 2 doors down from my friend Brenda Carr, who I've known since I'm 2. And I went to Worthington Hooker School, and one of my early memories is that the door on the school was so heavy. I can still remember that. Can you imagine that after
Yeah.
all these years? But anyway, let's see what happened. My earliest memory, in my kitchen on Linden Street and Willow Street, my mother had a small little table, and she would be cooking, and I would be sitting at the little table, you know, while she was getting dinner ready. And I remember going to the grocery store, the Mohican on State Street on Friday nights, because people didn't have shopping centers those days.
Right.
I actually remember the fish carts, the ice carts, and standing in line during the war for eggs, etc., etc. And I remember vividly the end of World War II, when it was announced that the war was over. My mom and dad took me in the car to New Haven, and all the Yale students were out screaming and having a wonderful time.
And how old were you about?
Well, what year would that have been? 43?
Yeah, when did it? 44? When was World War II?
I don't.
45.
45.
Thank you, Dad. And
So that
they were
means you
all
were
throwing
7.
7.
Okay.
And they were all the students
Good
were
math.
throwing toilet paper out the windows, and I still remember it was so much excitement. Then we moved to Linden Street.
That's in Hamden or New Haven?
That's in New Haven, 90 Linden Street, and we
Was
lived.
that 2-story house that I remember
Yeah,
going to
It was
visit?
on the first floor.
Right.
That's where you were delivering the mail that time when you came, no, I'm sorry, that wasn't you, that was your father. It was long before you.
Right.
But we'll talk about that
A
one
long
later.
mail route.
But, and that's where I got married from, and I was married at, we'll go into that part later on.
Later in
Yeah,
life.
yeah. But that's kind of it.
So how would you describe Linden Street? Did you go outside and play? Did you have friends on the street?
Well, Willow Street, my first one, we had, I don't know whether it was because I was small, but we had tremendous snowstorms. And the snow would pile up on the fronts of the porches, and we would climb up on a chair with our sled and slide off the banisters practically into the street. And, but everybody, I lived near Spring Glen Park, and every night, we always ate around 5. All the kids would take their bikes from all over the surrounding area of Fairhaven, New Haven, Hamden, and we'd all meet at the park. And as soon as the street lights went on, everybody vanished. So you got to know a lot of kids from because everybody used to get on buses and travel by themselves. And I used to ice skate when I was young at the arena in New Haven. And my mother used
That's the outdoor rink, right?
No, it was indoor.
Okay.
They used to have all the hockey games there. My mother used to let me, on Friday nights, I'd get on the Orange Street bus by myself and go down and skate till about 9, then get back on the bus and come home. Now, you'd never let anybody do that today at 10 or 12 years old.
Right.
But it was a one, and there were all sorts of people that lived in all nationalities, and it was a great neighborhood. And everybody sat on their front porches, and I'll tell you, if you got in trouble, the whole town knew, because
You could hear?
you could hear, you could see, and all the people in the neighborhoods knew all the kids. So it was kind of neat. You know, that doesn't happen today, and it's a
And do you
fortune.
keep in touch with a lot of, besides Brenda Carr, who you mentioned, do you keep in touch
Margie
with?
Donahue Hanson, I went to grammar school and high school with her. I still see her.
Which high school did you go to?
I went to St. Mary's, which is no longer there. It's out of service now. And when I went, they had boys and girls.
Okay.
So that was kind of fun, and they had a pretty good basketball team. And but it was, it was pretty tough. I mean, the nuns were on top of us every minute, and
So it was a Catholic school?
it was.
Okay.
And those were elementary years, from like
No, my
kindergarten to-
elementary were at Worthington Hooker,
Okay.
and then from Worthington Hooker, I went to St. Mary's. And then from St. Mary's, I went to Salve Regina in Newport, and that's how I met Dad.
Okay, but
Yeah,
going back,
we'll cover the later.
Okay, so just my, my younger years were just great. I had a great family. Every Sunday, we went to Uncle Ted's house. He lived in Yalesville, which is
Who's
part of,
Uncle Ted?
that
Your
was
mom's
my
brother?
mother's brother. And we would go there, the whole
So
family.
that's Riley family?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And Uncle Ted was the father of Bunce and Bob
Okay.
and Terry.
Right.
And with all those children, there were only 5 grandchildren.
Bunce and Bob, that's Riley, right?
Yeah, that was.
Or no, Hotchkiss.
Right, yeah.
Bunce's first name is, what's her real name?
Kathy.
Kathy.
Hotchkiss. She married Gordon.
Right.
And
And Terry Nalowak, she was a Hotchkiss then, or what was she?
she was a Riley.
Riley.
Yeah, that
So
was,
okay.
okay. And so with all those kids, there were only really 5 grandchildren, which is kind of unusual.
Right.
so you remember doing a lot of time on the weekends or with
All
family?
every weekend, every Sunday, we drove to Uncle Ted's. And poor Aunt Eva, Uncle Ted was kind of an Archie Bunker, if you will. And
That's a grouchy kind of conservative guy, right?
he was. And my mother and he were always, they loved each other, but they were always at each other. Like my mother would always say, she used to shop at Marshall's. And Uncle Ted would say, "Are you kidding me, Ann? You get to Marshall's." And they were always badgering each other, but we had so much fun. They had a little teeny house, and I always thought it was in the country. They had chickens and I think they had a little sheep. And
What town?
Yalesville.
Yalesville, okay.
Yeah. And I remember always going, no matter whether it was snowing or raining or whatever, we would go. And we'd get up there and it'd start to snow, and all the men would go out and put chains on the tires. I mean, that hasn't existed in years and years. And then we'd go home, but we always went, and Aunt Eva, poor Aunt Eva, she used to make these fabulous meals. Of course, everybody helped, but It was fun.
Every Sunday, a big family
Yeah.
meal.
So I have a suggestion. Let's cut the tape here. We'll proceed on to the next segment, and we'll
Okay.
continue from here.